Let's talk about Gavin with the good hair Newsom. He says he just balanced the California budget. Newsom announced $351 billion in balance zero deficit budget through 2028. Over to you, Friedberg, from your bunker, the last California stand in the Friedberg capitalist
I'm going to call this the state of California.
The state,
the state
of California. The lowercase state.
That's right. The state of California.
The state of the state.
And there are the state of the state. And there are five chapters to this: the ballooning costs, the accounting tricks, the revenue dependency problem, and now the big exodus and spiraling that's happening, and the looming unaccounted liabilities. These are the problems that California is facing as Gavin puts his bow on his final budget, calls it balanced, and walks away while the house burns. California's state budget ballooned from $215 billion a year in 2019, 6 years ago, to $355 billion today. So a 65% jump in the state budget. And there were a number of these kind of accounting tricks that took place to try and make it look like it's a balanced budget this year, but there's revenue and there's spending. When they call it a balanced budget, that's not the way we all talk about it in the business world, where you have like a P&L, you have revenue and expenses. They have revenue and expenses, and the expenses exceed the revenue. And that little difference, they do a bunch of borrowing against, and then they call it a balanced budget. So all that they've done...
So they were able to raise enough debt to cover their whole...
Exactly. So there's somewhere between 20 and 40 billion of debt that they have a legal ability to just pencil away. And that is now a liability that the state has, that the taxpayers are all going to have to pay at some point, that allows them to, quote, balance the budget this year. And I'm not going to get into all the details of what went into this budget, all the money that's being spent. It's crazy. But I think that's what's worth taking note of is the revenue dependency the state has. As you all know, the top tax rate in California is 14.4% today. Personal income tax is $142 billion of the state's revenue. Okay? That is $211 billion of revenue the state generates. 142 of it comes from personal income tax. The top 1%, 150,000 people, pay $70 billion, pay half of that tax, of that income. So $70 billion of the state's $210 billion income comes from just the top 1% of payers, 150,000 people who are already paying the highest tax rate in the country. The top 1,000 people in the state of California pay roughly $22 billion a year. So more than 11% of the state's income. The corporate tax is one of the highest in the country at 8.9%, $43 billion. So it's cheaper to move out of state. If you look at some of the other states, Florida, 5.5%, Tennessee's 6.5%, and Texas is 0. So now if you kind of look at what's happening, there's a massive exodus underway. The corporate exodus, because of the high tax rates, since 2019, at least 15 Fortune 500 companies have moved out of California, moved their headquarters out, not to mention all the local franchises and everything that moved out. 2,100 companies that are mid or large size have moved out of California since 2019. At least 5% of California jobs have been lost as these companies have moved out of the state. And this is the more important and crazy statistic. No one pays attention to this, but we are seeing an average annual exodus of 1 to 1.5% of personal income, meaning the AGI, the adjusted gross income. So people that earn money, about 1 to 1.5% of that income is leaving the state every year right now. That might not sound like a lot, but after 10 years, you've seen 15% of the state's income leave. And obviously with the new billionaire tax that's being proposed, we're going to see an acceleration as the numbers come out for 2025. There's, as we all know, personal friends that have left the state in 25 and many more that'll leave in 26, including our friend David Sachs. So there is a spiraling of a loss of revenue while there is a ballooning in costs. And this is fundamental to the spiraling problem that's occurring. So now, in order to try and make more money, the state has to go further down. They can't just go to the corporates and the high net worth earners. They're now going to the average Californian. So they're increasing sales tax rates this year by creating a new sales tax on software. So if you buy Microsoft Word or you pay for your Gmail subscription or even your ChatGPT account, you have to pay an 8% sales tax on that this year. They're estimating that sales tax is a brand new one. It'll generate about $1 billion a year in incremental revenue for the state. They're also creating a new tax on healthcare insurance that corporates are going to have to pay. That's ultimately going to pass down to the individual. That's going to create another $2 billion a year in taxes on health insurance. The final thing that they did, which we all know about, is they made the temporary top income tax bracket permanent. So, it was only meant to be a temporary to bridge a major budget deficit problem back in 2012, 13.3%. And that became permanent. And now it's increased to 14.4%. So this is the spiraling that takes place. The costs are ballooning, the revenue is leaving, and now there's a scrambling underway in the state of California to try and make up this difference. And they're still falling short. In the out years, 2028, 29, the projection is $40 billion a year in budget deficits every year. Now, looming over the state of California is the fact that there's this insane unaccounted debt problem. California already has $1.4 trillion in public debt. The state has $500 billion and the local governments have another, call it $800 billion. The state has a reported $664 billion in unfunded pension liabilities. That number, by many estimates, is closer to $1.5 trillion. And then there's a retiree healthcare obligation deficit of $175 billion. You add this all up, there's somewhere around $1.5 to $2 trillion of incremental liabilities that the state has to come up with. And remember, all of those pension liabilities, that $1 trillion plus of pension liabilities, sits senior to the bonds of the state of California because of something that's known as the California rule. So the state has this looming kind of cliff ahead of it. And there's already the spiraling problem where they're increasing costs because of the demands of the unions and the cost of living and so on. And there's an exodus of corporations and high net worth individuals that pay the taxes. So I would argue that Governor Newsom did not exactly put a bow tie on the budget and create a balanced budget and leave California in a great state as he is wrapping up his final term and his final budget here in the state. But in fact, I think that this state, which, as I've said in the past, threatens to bring down the union, is on the brink of defaults that are going to be so significant that if the federal government was called in to bail them out, because the state cannot declare bankruptcy legally, that all of the red states and all of the other taxpayers in the United States will say, why the hell should I pay federal taxes to bail out California? And I think that's what the story will be over the next decade with the state.
So you predict
given the fiscal condition.
AOC and Mondami, president, vice president, AOC. Mondami can't be VP. He wasn't born here.
I do predict, so I predict AOC will be president. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of dispersion in what could happen here, but I would say AOC would be my front runner based on the movement for the extraordinary cost of living in the United States right now, largely because of government spending.
Yep.
The fact that people are seeing this wealth disparity, those two things are going to continue to drive the socialist movement over the next 24 months. And if AOC comes in and they bail out California and they federalize California's liabilities, you are going to see parts of this union, the red states, as they're called,
Texas, Florida,
the Texas
Nevada,
of the world, that are going to say, why should we be part of this union anymore? We don't want to pay for all of these liabilities that these blue states have accrued and that we are now being asked to bail out. And that is where I think you face a crisis of the union in the years ahead.
Okay. Sachs, Texas,
and I think California is the first. Yeah.
In this scenario, I mean, it's pretty far-fetched, but it's not far-fetched that you would need a federal bailout to get California out of this in the next couple of years, and the government needs a bailout itself with the massive. We're going to add $2 to $3 trillion a year for the next couple of years. So, go ahead, Chamath.
There's something that's going to happen. I think that Freeberg is right up until the point of the federal absorption. I think what will happen is that you'll wipe out the California pensions and you'll wipe out the pension obligations and you'll do some sort of negotiated settlement. And I think that's where you're going to have a wholesale replacement of the California Constitution. You'll have a complete redistricting. I think you will have a complete red wave in the state. And you will disassemble and dismantle everything that caused California to be so poorly run that got them to this place. So I agree with David. All of the issues that he painted it's unbelievable. By the way, there's an incredible tweet. I think her name is Joanna Ives. Maybe, Nick, you can find it. But she compared the last 8 years of DeSantis versus J.B. Pritzker. And I asked my team, hey, can you create a table that actually adds Newsom to the list so that you can do the 3-person comparison? Because it's quite staggering how broken these blue states have become and how they continue to try to spend their way out of what is being shown is just general incompetence. They're not good at managing. They're not good at running things. They're not good at delivering results. And unfortunately, until they feel the brunt of what mismanagement actually means, which is that all the people that have paid into this system, sadly and unfortunately and avoidably, will be the ones that get punished. We will unfortunately not learn in California. Find this tweet and read it, and you would just be shocked at how unbelievably good DeSantis has been in running Florida and how unbelievably tragically bad JB Pritzker is. And then just ask your favorite AI, compare California on the spectrum of Florida versus Illinois. And what you'll find is California is even worse than Illinois in most of those comparisons.
Sachs, you want to give us the last word here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my decision to go to Texas is looking better and better.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
I said when this BTA thing, the so-called Billionaire Tax Act, was proposed, and everyone was saying it's a very low probability this happens. I was like, I don't really see why it would be low probability. I think it's going to get on the ballot. All you have to do is collect a certain number of signatures. It's not that hard. And then once it's on the ballot, I don't see why it wouldn't pass. And everyone's like, no, Gavin Newsom has assured us that he'll kill it. He'll make some backroom deal, get rid of it. And on the day, the final day, where BTA was going to be dropped from the ballot or not, Newsom came out with a video on X where he basically endorsed more taxes on billionaires. And this was right after the DSA candidates won in New York. So he sees the writing on the wall. He's not going to come out publicly.
By the way, the problem with the billionaire tax is that if it does get passed and it isn't obviated by the three other ballot initiatives that actually negate it, you're going to have 200 or 300 individual lawsuits that will take a decade to meander through the courts. And ultimately, I think a lot of people have standing here. And I just wonder, what will they have proven at that point? Because it'll be a decade later. It'll be 2036. And the California government will have had to spend billions of dollars on legal fees to fight all these billionaires, all to end up losing at the Supreme Court anyways.
By then, they'll probably have like a federal wealth tax or something like that.
And the tragedy of it all is that California, at various points in recent history, has had a surplus because of the massive tax base from Silicon Valley. They could have managed this. Their incompetence, their selfishness, and their corruption is what has caused this. They could have, if any
Total
state could have balanced its budget, it is
29 minutes, 3
California
seconds.
because of our massive tax
There
receipts.
needs to be a hard
Heart rate
landing.
98 beats per minute.
I really hope it doesn't result in the wipeout of these pensions. I think the pensioners should be extremely upset with
That's not gonna
California
happen, Chamath.
Democratic politics.
Look, this idea that somehow things get bad enough where you get a red wave in super blue California and everything gets magically fixed, not going to happen. What's going to happen is a blue state's going to get bluer. And
That's right. Socialism.
the remedy for more and more socialism is going to be to intensify the socialism. And there's going to be
That's right.
a giant final confiscation.
Then we're going to deal with a California bankruptcy in the next 10 years. And
Can't
it
go
is
bankrupt.
unfortunately, it will unfortunately result in a complete restructuring of those debt and obligations. And this is where I think you're going to wipe out a lot of these things that people are guaranteeing. I don't think you're going to see these pensions honored.
If you just look at the budget per person, places like Texas and Florida spend about $5,000 per citizen on services. You know, if you divide the budget by the population, and then you look at New York City, it's close to $13,000, and you look at California, close to $9,000, and you simply do not get 2 or 2.5 times or 2.x times the value living in those states in terms of services.
No, the problems are all
And
worse.
it's competence. Yes, it's worse.
The problems
and it
are worse.
really, the more you look to that state government to solve your problems, the more problems you will have. In Texas, if you got a ranch, it's up to
it also
you.
just seems these blue states attract these derelict, incompetent people.
Yes,
I mean,
grifters,
Well, look,
lunatics.
let me explain.
Incompetence.
they're so incompetent. My
Yes,
God,
it
they're
just
so,
has to do with
bad.
competence. And it also is the populace being self-reliant. If you live in Texas,
No.
when you get your ranch, they say, hey, here's your ranch. And then it's up to you to figure out, hey, who's going to pick up my garbage? And, do I want a well? Do I want to use the city water? What's my energy situation going to be? And people make these kind of thoughtful decisions with us. They don't look to the state for every single handout or hand-holding. There's a ruggedness and a rugged individualism and self-reliance that makes the state not have to tax everybody to 54, 60, 65%. I guarantee you, Friedberg and Chamath, you will be paying 60 to 65% tax if you stay in California. And I tell you, New York, it's at 54 right now. I guarantee you it breaks 60 or it will be proposed to break 50. We'll see if they stop it by the end of Mondami's reign in my hometown.
Look, let me tell you what leftism is, okay? It's basically just people trying to string together words to justify taking your money, okay? And they're just experimenting. It's like monkeys typing on a keyboard with words to try and hack everyone's brains to basically figure out how to steal all of their money. And some of those words are virtue signaling. Some of them are guilt tripping and moral accusations. Whatever it is, there's always some new words.
One, yeah.
But it's never to solve a problem. In fact, all the problems just get worse. It's just to figure out how to separate you from your money. And I had this thought when I saw that, like Mackenzie Bezos, just giving away like $26 billion, $26 billion of Jeff Bezos' money to all these left-wing causes.
Hey, she earned it too.
But putting that aside, she gave away all this money. I'm like, oh, okay. So now like world hunger is fixed, right? Because remember how they told us that it was because of Elon Musk's greed that he refused to hand over. He didn't fork over a big chunk of his money. And with that money, we could have fed the whole world and solved world hunger. So why isn't the problem solved now that she just donated $26 billion? That's what they said Elon needed to do to solve world hunger. They always treat your money as if it belongs to them or it belongs to the government. And it's your greed and selfishness that's creating all these problems. None of these problems have been fixed. What's the proof that any of that money did anything? All it did was go to line the pockets of all these leftist NGOs and, buy them more houses or pay them higher salaries.
She would have been better off investing in Ohalo
no
and
problems
other
get solved.
companies. If literally, I hate to break this news.
What does the poly market say on Gavin's chances of
he's down to,
becoming
he's plummeting. He's plummeting. Yeah, Gavin's down to 20. He peaked at 40.
That's quite high, though.
I mean, I think people are realizing it's a great haircut and, a really smooth talker. But just like he stole other things in his life, he's going to steal your money. Period. Full stop. I'm not going to get into details.
I think he's lower in these polls because the Democratic Party is moving left, is moving to the TSA.
Yes, look at AOC.
And people think he's too moderate.
Absolutely,
AOC's going up, and this John Ossoff guy's come out of nowhere. They're all to the left of Gavin Newsom.
So
Newsom's problem, and this is why he put out that video on the day that he was supposed to kill the BTA. He puts out a video endorsing billionaire taxes, is because he needs to position himself to being more DSA adjacent.
Well, to be fair to Newsom, he also on the same day said he's against the Billionaire Tax Act and he's voting against it. This was his hedging video, which is to kind of zoom out his policy on, hey, this BTA doesn't make sense, but I do agree we need more taxation. I think was kind of the intention.
Well, we all
his hedge, but also he failed to kill BTA.
Taxes.
Everyone thought, all these California billionaires and these chat groups thought Newsom would be their savior.
That's right.
And that was a big mistake.
What's it like? Sachs, what's it like in that group chat? Tell us about that group chat. What's it like in there? What's the meme like in there? Woo! In the billionaire group chat. Go ahead.
It's 8:06 p.m. here. I have a meeting I have to go to. I want to say I love you and I miss all of you. And I want to say a huge happy birthday to the most incredible country in the world. I could not have imagined my life being any better in any place. I feel so blessed and so lucky to be an American. I feel so thankful. I feel so grateful. It really is the best country in the world.
We have to fight for it.
Yeah, we have to fight for it. Yeah, and on behalf of those of us who have been here,
happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday. And for those of us who have been here for 7 generations, we think you're doing a good job. We're going to let you stay here. We're going to let you stay. On behalf
JCal, how can we take away your citizenship? That's what I want. Is a law where we can revoke JCal's citizenship.
7th generation, bitches. I've been
Which
here.
the 4 of us should be deported. I think you would lose.
Oh, no.
We'll find some constitutional loophole.
Enemy Aliens Act.
Bye, Jason.
All right. Feel free. On that note, happy birthday, America. And 250 more great ones. Best country in the world. Give a fuck you think, Democratic, Socialist, commie scumbags. All right.